Welcome to the Lightforge podcast. This is Adwicta.
This is Merps. Hello. Hope you guys are all doing well. We got lots to talk about. Look, the expansion just came out, and typically around this time, I would be like, okay, let's talk about the meta, but obviously there's no news. Now we have news. We have actually tons
Yeah.
of news we can digest because Matt London and the team, they are being responsive, they're trying out stuff. So we already have some changes to the meta.
Yep. The patch, or not the patch, the adjustment, hot fix to the game has happened in the arena, and a lot of things have changed. The meta is nothing like what it was before. This was a big movement. The other stuff was a small movement. If you remember the first adjustment, it kind of moved Druid down a bit, made Rogue a little better, and made the neutral side feel a bit better by lowering Knight Captain's rates by 25%, 35%, and killing Gangplank. And we're like, okay, this is all very good direction. Well, they amped it up. But before we talk more about that, I want to first apologize for the podcast uploading on podcast formats and on YouTube. It's still not up on YouTube yet. We're working on it. We got really distracted by Diablo. That's all we can say about that. But it'll be up in a normal schedule now. It may take us a couple days to get everything in order again. But it had just totally slipped our mind that this process wasn't automated enough. So we're getting back on it. So sorry if you guys were waiting for it, and if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, what happened last week? Did you guys skip an episode? We did not skip an episode. It was actually a 2-hour long episode, and half of it was about Diablo Immortal. More than half.
More than half. Yes.
So go listen to that, especially if you're also playing or just interested in Diablo Immortal. We spoiler alert if you haven't listened to that one. We really like Diablo Immortal, and we think most of the microtransaction and other stuff that people are talking about have been hugely overblown. So you can listen to us rant about that in the other podcast, and not in the other podcast, in the other episode. Anyway, back onto this patch that happened. So the patch hit on Thursday. And we now have plenty of data on HS Replay to see what the patch does. And
let's read through the patch first. Okay. So this is patch 23.4.2 or whatever. This was posted on the Blizzard forums or the Blizzard website. Let's just talk about sort of the what it says about the arena, and then Matt London actually tweeted out a lot more details. So within the post, it said that they removed Goblin Bomb, Naval Mine, Helmet Hermit, and Frozen Mammoth from the arena draft pool. If you remember, they actually reintroduced it, and they were just like, okay, we're going to take these out. And they made several appearance rate adjustments to impactful neutral cards and to Demon Hunter, Druid, Hunter, Mage, Paladin, Priest, Rogue, and Shaman classes. Now, that's what it said in the official post. Matt London on Twitter, by the way, Matt London on Twitter has been really giving a lot of information. So if you want more information, you should probably follow Matt. He followed it up with this. He says that they had two goals with the composition of sets for this arena meta. Number one, to focus on more recent sets. We definitely saw that. Boomsday is the oldest set, and Boomsday is definitely not the worst set by any means in the history of Hearthstone. To ensure modern design principles, in parentheses, fewer bad cards. And number two, to choose sets that had interesting synergies with the most recent set, Voyage to the Sunken City. Once again, Boomsday, right? There's lots of mechs. And there's definitely a mech feel within Sunken City as well.
So the effect of that, though, I think worked the opposite of what the dev team was expecting, because mechs were pretty good in the previous meta, and now that they've diluted the pool with these old cards. They're not super old. They're not old gods level old, but they're still not exactly at the same power level as the most recent sets that have mechs. So now the mech pool is diluted. Stuff like Gorilla Bot is no longer like A tier levels good, which is all great for the game, by the way. But I think it went the other way of what they wanted to do, which is they wanted to make mechs even more interesting and relevant. And instead, mechs were pretty interesting and relevant and arguably OP in the previous meta. And now they're like balanced and normal and dinky, and people don't really do anything with them.
Yep. So, moving on, Matt elaborates in tweets for balance adjustments. I'm skipping one tweet, but the next tweet I think is important. For balance adjustments, we have changed the appearance rates of even more cards than last time, and the percentage shifts are greater than ever before. Remember, like, greater than ever before. We know from looking at HS replay.
I think he's exaggerating on that. I don't think it's greater than ever before.
No. So here's the thing. Even if it's not exactly true percentage-wise, it does show that they are willing, right? Because by him saying it, it means, okay, we are willing to do.
Well, the first round of adjustments were small. They were restrained, right? We were talking about how restrained they were, how much they're just testing the water. So this is they're taking their shot now, right? And if you look at the results, they went too far. They're trying to get class balance, right? Warlock, which was below average, is now 54%. Warrior, which was significantly below average as well, was now 52.6%. And what was the top class? Shaman, which was 53%, 53.5% before, is now 47.7%. So now they know what going too far feels like. In the first round of adjustments, they dipped their toe in, and then they didn't go far enough, but they knew they weren't going far enough. This time around, they're like, we're gonna put the pedal to the metal and see what happens, and they went too far. As they probably expected, they had a good chance, if not a likelihood, of making it go too far, right? So now they know it's somewhere between the two. And neither adjustment was like disastrous, but they were also neither like 100% ideal. So I think this new balance team is they're figuring it out, and they now have an additional data point. But yeah, he wasn't kidding. The adjustments are huge. Looking at HS replay, double is what the adjustment is for some class cards, including class commons. So if you think you are seeing hollow abominations everywhere, you are not just feeling it. That is literally what's happening. Hollow Abomination offering rates have doubled.
Yep. So Matt says that some common cards will feel or will be as rare as epic cards. And this essentially, it doesn't eliminate, because on average, common cards are still more common than your average epic card. But you can't just look at a card and see that it is a common card and expect it to appear at any rate.
Yes.
You know, we are back to this this more specific offering rate system in which, if you guys remember, I'm not saying it's going to go back to this, but there was a period of time in which they just adjusted SAP out of the meta period for Rogue. And this was pre-discovery. So SAP really did not exist. SAP was
SAP was seen like at the below the rates of legendary cards.
Yeah. So this is something that was done before, and not just done before. Yes, SAP was like rarer than legendaries. Period. So
they're not doing that, by the way. They're not. This is not. They're going as low as epic for common neutral cards, and they're going as high as doubling the offering rates for class cards that they needed to adjust up. So in going downwards, they adjust down by up to 75%, and they only adjust, I think, or I don't know, they're going down by as much as 75%, and they're going up by as much as plus 100%. So that's the range of adjustments that we've seen. And in practice, what we've seen in HS replay is that their adjustments up and down, it doesn't exactly follow it. Like, I wish they really did just adjust stuff down or up, but some things don't really work that way. Like, we'll go through what would actually happen, right? And we'll start with the epic cards. The title of this podcast, or the first title that we're the first agenda topic that we have here, if you're watching the video, is Knight Captain is an epic now. Because the offering rates of Knight Captain is now the same as an epic neutral card. It is Knight Captain. What else is an epic now? Well, Mothership is an epic now. If you remember, Mothership already and Knight Captain both already had their offering rates adjusted down, but not even by 50%. I think it was by like 35 or 40%. And now Mothership is adjusted down 50% because that's how much it takes to make it an epic, and Knight Captain is adjusted down a total of 75%. Turn it into an epic card. And that's not the only new epic cards that exist. Twin Tyrant is now an epic card. Gangplank, which was already kind of close to an epic card after the first adjustment, is now officially an epic card. So those are the neutral adjustments that went to epic. I know Matt's post made it seem like we adjusted who knows how many cards to like epic. No, it's just 4 cards, and 3 of them already had an offering odds adjustment attached to them anyway. So the new one is Twin Tyrant. Now, on top of that, Venomous Scorpid was also adjusted, but it was only adjusted down to a rare, not to an epic. So there are 2 additional cards that have been adjusted, and all the adjustments got tuned up in the on the legendary side. Now, there's more than just these cards that have been adjusted. I can't say for sure, but I think School Teacher got adjusted down a tiny bit. That may just be a kind of a hangover from the fact that they essentially added a bunch of cards to the epic pool, right? And if you add cards to the epic pool, all the epics get diluted. But you're going to see a School Teacher like, I don't know, 15% less now than you did before. So I think that's what that effect is, but I don't know. Meanwhile, Spammy didn't really move that much, but if you remember, Spammy was one of the ones they had already adjusted before. So Spammy kept its adjustment. So it is also down from where it should be if there were no adjustments attached to Spammy. And Spammy is interesting because it is by far the lowest win rate card that they made the adjustment to. There's like a number of epic cards with higher win rate that they didn't adjust. And they don't do adjustment just based on win rate. They do it based on how good the card feels, right? How much it's like hurting what they perceive the meta to be. So like Reef Walker is not adjusted still, Amalgam is still not adjusted, Ram Commander is still not adjusted, despite Reef Walker having really high win rates. I mean, we don't rate it an A tier card either, right? So we're completely aligned with the Blizzard balance team on not thinking Reef Walker is the problem. I don't think you hear anyone else calling for Reef Walker to be adjusted down or banned. So it's just kind of a really good card that is allowed to exist. On the legendary side for neutrals, Sneeds got adjusted down a tiny bit, or I don't know what happened. It's too small. It's not like they're moving things so much, and you look at Sneed's offering rate, and you're like, it's down 15%. Like, maybe that's just noise. I don't really know. But what is definitely not noise is Ibis. Ibis is the new RBO. RBO didn't move. It already had a 50% downwards adjustment rate from the first adjustment that happened a few weeks back before this set. So RBO was in its own category as like super legendary in terms of the offering rate. And now Ibis joins it. And I think it's the only one that joined it. Like, looking at the offering rates, they didn't do anything to Neptulon. They didn't do anything to Azamat, Ysera, Prestor, Varian, Okani. None of those got changed. And Sneeds only went down a tiny bit. So I don't know. Maybe the data for Sneeds isn't there yet, and Sneeds actually did get adjusted down too. But right now, we definitely have 2 super legendaries, RBO and Ibis.
Cool.
So that's the neutral side. All good things, right? Like, if you remember, we had changed our rating of Knight Captain to an A as of the previous meta, which means that we wanted it to be adjusted down to an epic card at least, if not a legendary card. And that's happened now. Gangplank we always had as an A, which means it's in the same kind of deal. Its win rate was never quite there, but it also feels bad whenever it does win your opponent the game, or even when it wins you the game. You're just like, yep, couldn't deal with it, and now we win from Gangplank. And that happens more in this meta than in the previous metas, than the prior meta, because the prior meta really had more initiative, even if they were less good initiative. This meta seems to have better cards, but maybe the frequency is not as high. But anyway, Gangplank win rate was never great. It was self-countered within its own set, but they had nerfed it before anyway. They just viewed it as a problematic card. And now you're adding Twin Tyrant and Venomous Scorpid to the list. Those were our two original A tier cards that was in neutral, was common, and was never banned, and was never adjusted down because they didn't used to adjust down neutral cards. And now they have. So this is all good stuff. This is like almost perfect. They are drawing the line almost exactly where we would draw the line. Like, this is great community and dev alignment on the neutral side. If you remember, when they first started nerfing RBO, one of the first things we said was, that's wonderful, but what about Ibis? Like, we also mentioned Sneeds. We also, like, threw Ysera in there just because its win rate is up there, but we weren't really concerned about Ysera. We were only somewhat concerned about Sneeds. We were very concerned about Ibis. And Ibis is the one they hit next. So they may keep hitting stuff, but it's great that they hit Ibis, because that really is the win rates don't reflect the full story because people misuse it all the freaking time. Kind of insane legendary card.
I think Ibis is just incredibly, incredibly strong right now. Because part of the look, I don't want to start something about Ysera and then have you chime in about how Ysera sucks or anything, but I will say for Ibis, it really is emblematic and one of the flagship cards of the current meta, which is flexible swing potential huge bombs, right? Like, it really fulfills that. You could play it really any turn, but typically 7 mana and above. That's when it really starts to shine, and you can get that consistency. That's when you play Ibis. And look, people talk about this on Arena HS. I know some streamers are frustrated. One in particular, about how swingy the meta is. But yeah, when you think about this meta, it's very much so an Ibis meta in which you kind of just got to hit them with bombs. You got to find your synergies, and Ibis is kind of like the most flexible, powerful bomb that there is. And I'm saying that like the combination of it. There's gonna be stuff that's really, really ridiculously powerful. Whether it is like a colossal that just like fits with the situation, or even a combo, right? We talked about parrots last week. Parrots are so freaking good in this meta just because of the value they get you, and there's so many stupid battle cries, or even the gray parrot, right, that casts giant spells. That works too. Get your synergies, get your combos, get your stupid stuff, because everybody has them. You got time to play them. And Ibis is just kind of the perfect card for the meta. But yeah, that's kind of the way it is right now. And I don't know how you guys feel about it. I'm not really playing Arena right now, so kick W to anybody who is playing it. But I think that there is definitely stuff to enjoy in some ways. But if you're spamming Arena, I think there's a lot that will get you frustrated as well.
Yeah, and I have played Arena in the new meta, and it is not significantly better than the old meta. In the sense of, like, they did all these changes, different classes are on top now, but it is definitely no less frustrating facing the warrior now, or especially the demon hunter, the warlock now, compared to facing a shaman before. It's a similar meta to what we had left. So the adjustments shifted everything around, but it didn't change the feel of the meta. And we'll go into why next. But first, the classes that were hit, right? The classes that got knocked down. I'm not going to go over every card that got reduced, but Shaman was hit, Paladin was hit. You guys can figure out which cards got hit, right? Like, Caverns got hit. It's an epic now. The Paladin cards all got hit. What's the ridiculous ones? Templar Captain is an epic now, was a rare. And here's the thing that's interesting: Brasswing got hit. Brasswing was an epic. It is now a legendary. So they are willing to go. They are willing to turn epic cards into legendary cards, just like they're willing to turn legendary cards into super legendary cards. They are not saying like, "Hey, we're only going to lower cards to epic." That's what they've done on the neutral side. They haven't nerfed a epic card into a legendary yet on the neutral side, or at least I don't think so. It could just be a low amount of data and school teachers already there, but I don't think so.
I think typically what they do is they'll just ban it, right? Like what they did with Abominable Lieutenant.
Yeah.
Epic, because epic cards actually like Lieutenant was weird because it's one that was just purely powerful. Typically epic cards are just strange,
Mhm.
right? So what they do is they either nerf the card itself, look at BGH, or what they do is they will just get like get rid of it from the offering rate, and then you can only get it from like Glacier or something, right?
Yeah.
So I am curious, like if we ever get a card that is just kind of too powerful, which is kind of the situation that we have, right? School
Mhm.
teacher is just it's power. I mean, it's some RNG as well, but
No, but
like
it's
it's
power.
so consistent. Yeah, it's so consistent. So I am really curious to see what happens with this because typically it is just a ban or a nerf,
Yep.
right?
And school teacher also is like on the line, you know?
It,
Like
it, it
it's
is on the
not
line.
it is not as good as an abomination.
It's also something that is okay because you always have to weigh the fun factor, right? It's like okay, it's powerful, but if it creates a lot of fun for
Mhm.
people, then we should give it a little bit more leeway. And I could see that for school teacher. It's like
Yeah.
okay, even if it is like kind of more powerful than something like a twin tyrant, like if twin tyrant makes you feel worse, right? Like
Mhm.
twin tyrant makes you feel worse. This um the person on the losing side as well may not attribute it as much to school teacher as well. This is something that we talked about. And
Mhm.
as long as they're not fully attributing it to school teacher, you kind of can get away with it as a designer,
All of
right? So
chat talking about Fires of Zinashari when it was a school teacher that won that freaking game. Just saying.
oh god. But yeah. So that's sort of that that's sort of where we're at. I am super interested to see what they do
Mhm.
with school teacher because I can definitely see them not touching it, and I think that would be I wouldn't be
It's a
happy with it, but
position.
it's reasonable. It's
Yeah.
reasonable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
a
it's a
position you
position.
can
It's a
take. Like we
position.
rated it A plus, right? And they're comfortable nerfing common cards to epic and calling it a day. So that means they think epics can be A level good. Like A tier
Yeah.
cards can be epic. That is fine. They're not banning even things like spammy, right? Like spammy is an A tier card and it is an epic, and they're like, look, epics can be A tier, and I'm like, all right, fine. If epics can be A tier, well, school teachers A plus tier. So it's not an S tier like Abomination, but it's better than the other epics. It's better than Twin Tyrant.
Yeah, it is.
And I don't know. So I'm just happy they're making everything fully aligned with kind of like what we've been saying for a while now. The only area that, and this includes hitting up these old cards like Twin Tyrant and Venomous Scorpid, which we've been calling for a very long time. But the interesting thing is Venomous Scorpid is only made a rare. It has not been made an epic, which is interesting. When everything else has been made an epic, it's like
This is yeah, I
they
think
made a
part of the
decision,
reason
right? Like there was
yeah,
nothing
yeah.
else made a rare.
And I think part of that just goes to the fact that it's Discover, it's more fun,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, even though I think Scorpid is just as problematic, if not more problematic than the first and slash, second time that around that we saw Scorpid, uh, because of just how swingy this meta is, how good spells are now. Like spells are
Mm-hmm.
really good. Um, so yeah, like I think Scorpid is hugely problematic, but at the same time, I do understand people really like discovering stuff.
Yep.
So yeah, like it game design wise and reception wise, it is like Twin Tyrant is kind of like worse. It just sort of is.
Yep. On the design side, definitely. And like something like Pandaren, right? It has a very high win rate too. It's not nerfed at all.
Yeah.
It's just a common card. And Pandaren is like, since they buffed it, like they actually buffed it in the game but to be a 3-drop, is actually good now. And it's that Scorpion issue, right? Except it's not even being made a rare. It's just staying a common. And it's not as good as a Scorpion. It's nowhere near as good as a Scorpion, but still. Okay, so yeah, like Wallpaw Cavern nerfed. What would you think? Command of the Neptulon, you'd expect to be nerfed. It was nerfed. It goes down. They nerfed like everything. Like Sleepbreaker is nerfed. I don't know. Like it's a really powerful card, right? Like we put it not in the category of Wallpaw Cavern and Command of the Neptulon, but right in the tier below that. And then that's nerfed. Earth Revenant is nerfed. Like just whatever you see that is good of the classes that were on top, all nerfed by like 50% at least, if not more. Schooling, by the way, that was nerfed. I think I think that was nerfed to an epic. I think that's a common card nerfed to an epic. So they did that too. Like Snowfall Guardian was a common card. I'm pretty sure it's nerfed to an epic now. They like took an axe to Shaman. And remember, this is Shaman at 53.5% win rate. This is not a super out of control Shaman in the meta. This is a Shaman barely creating any distance between itself and number 2. And they just hammered Shaman, which is why it should be to nobody's surprise that Shaman is now at 47.7%, maybe even dropping more after that. Like, they went at it. And it's too much. Well, okay, I would argue that it's not too much for the hammering part, but the next part that they did, we're just glossing over what they actually hammered, right? Like the classes they hammered down, they hammered. So if you're looking at a class that's not doing too well, that was doing well in the previous meta, what were the classes they moved again, Merps? Do you still have that list up? Because it's I just looked at Shaman and Paladin.
I listed like 8 classes.
Okay, fine. But like I just looked at Shaman and Paladin because those are the classes with the most problematic cards. I wanted to see if they got nerfed and what else got nerfed, and they got nerfed and everything got nerfed. So that's knocking them all the way down. Like what I said before when we were talking.
It's one sec. Priest, Hunter, Demon Hunter, Druid, Mage should be increased. Shaman, Paladin, Rogue are decreased.
Okay.
That is.
So Rogue is the other one. Yes. That was decreased. So if you're looking for like really good Rogue cards or Paladin cards or Shaman cards, just expect them to be offered at epic rates because that's what they did. They took an axe to these classes. And if you go back a couple Lightforges, when they first did the adjustments and what we were talking about, we were like, this isn't like what you need to adjust is you need to adjust everybody down to about 75% win rate. Like you don't adjust the top classes to be 50% and the worst classes to be 50%, because that involves buffing a lot of very terrible cards from the worst classes. Terrible as in you don't want to see it in the meta. And then the worst classes become playable, or even the best class, and then all of a sudden you have an even worse meta than what the meta you were trying to fix is. So you want them all down to 45, to 75, or even lower, and then you want to raise the worst classes to around that mark. So if you look at this right now, Paladin's at 51.1, so they didn't nerf Paladin hard enough. Shaman's at 47.7. Good! That's actually where Shaman should be. You look at Rogue's at 48.5, so not quite hard enough, but they got close. It's good. So the nerfs are actually good, even though they look super harsh. Like, I want them every single time to take an axe. Like, I want them to take an axe to the top classes, to all the classes that are doing remotely well every single time that they make a release. Because that is the only way you achieve balance. Now, where they messed up, and why this meta is no better than the previous meta, is they did the thing that we kept saying you should not do. And the thing that they did not do much of the last adjustment around, which is that the last adjustment round, they did not really bump up the offering rates of the best cards of the lower classes by that much, because all the adjustments were small. And they looked at it, and they saw the win rates of Hunter and Warrior and I think Priest move by like 2%, from like 35 to 38. And they're like, wow, we got to do a lot more than that. Big mistake. Because they did do a lot more than that. They did a lot more than that. And they looked at the class that were at the bottom. And besides Priest, which was super at the bottom, you had the other classes Merps was talking about, which is like Warlock, which is like Warrior, which is like, what was it, Druid? And what's the other one? Mage? And Warlock and Warrior now are out of control. Especially Warlock. Warlock is, and I'll tell you how to control. Well, I'll tell you what they did first. What they did is they took a bunch of cards and they're like, these cards are good. They're in a bad classes. Let's double it. Literally what they did. They moved rare cards to be common. They moved epic cards to be rare. Just down the list, 10 cards, top 10 cards from each class, and that's not a great way to balance stuff. But the worst part is when they move the common cards that are in the top 10. The already common cards, the already common class cards that you already see all the time whenever you face these classes, and that are super good at anchoring the class, and they doubled the offering rate. So now, just gonna click on Warlock because it's the most ridiculous. That's why it's a 54% win rate and maybe going up.
Yep.
Okay,
I think you should read off, for example, the list of Warlock
cards. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm doing right now. The
okay.
list of Warlock common cards that are now super commons. I'm going to skip the rare ones, or I'll tell you the rare ones afterwards. But these are all originally common cards that have normal common card offering rates. And they are now offered double what they should be. Number 1, Spawn of Deathwing. Number 2, Demonic Assault. Number 3, Hollow Abomination. Number 4, Unstable Shadow Blast. Number 5, Abyssal Enforcer. And even Final Gasp got this treatment. Like, they just went down and hit every single card that was good in the class. And they're like, double it, double it, double it, double it. We need this class to go up. And the class went up, and now it's problematic. Because they've successfully nerfed the Shaman to the ground, and the Shaman's winning 7.5% win rate. Now you're going to bring the Warlock, which was originally 47.5% win rate, and you somehow are going to bring it up equally as hard? So Shaman and Warlock swapped, because guess what? They nerfed all the Shaman cards, and they boosted up all the Warlock cards. What do you think was going to happen? And the answer to this isn't, okay, well, we'll only nerf half the Shaman cards, and then we'll only boost up half the Warlock cards, and then they'll be 50% each. No, they may end up being 50% each, but that would be a terrible move. You should keep all the Shaman nerfs, and just not move Warlock. Or at the very least, not move Warlock or any other class's common class cards up in offering rate. Because what happens now? When you roll into the arena? You guys that play the arena a lot, you know what happens. There's Spawn of Deathwings everywhere. I got Hollow Abomination 4 times in a row. I lost that game. We almost won. I did miss lethal. It's a really weird lethal involving like abyssal whatever things you put in your opponent's hand and how 2 of them stack, and I top decked the card. So yes, I did miss lethal. But still, alright, they played a crap ton of Hollow Abominations to like get me to this position. Like, this is what the meta is now. This is what I mean by the meta is no different than what it was before all these changes. It may even be worse, despite the fact that the neutral side is better. Because the class card ridiculousness side with Warlock is so much... Alright, it's not so much worse than Shaman. The Shaman ridiculous cards, like Caverns, are still better than Hollow Abomination. I think we rated it the same as Spawn of Deathwing, but it's better than Spawn of Deathwing. Like it's in the same tier, but it's better than Spawn of Deathwing even. But they're both S tier cards. But it's problematic. You're because what was Caverns originally? It was a rare card. What is Spawn of Deathwing now? They're both S tier cards, by the way. Spawn of Deathwing now is a super common. So now you see Spawn of Deathwing and Hollow Abomination, both, in addition to Demonic Assault and all the other cards I listed, all of them, each of them is seen 4 times as often as Caverns was seen. So, Caverns was GG. Maybe Hollow Abomination isn't GG, but is 4 Hollow Abominations instead of Yetis GG? Well, yeah, it's way more GG than Caverns. And that's what they did. So, the meta's not good right now. I think it is a little bit worse than it was before the changes. And I'm hoping that new changes are going to happen at some point soon. Like, it just happened on Thursday. They probably have to take a week to analyze stuff and maybe make new changes, maybe 2 weeks. But I hope the next round of changes happens. Because this is a case where, with the best of intentions, and having done, like, more than 75% of the stuff right, they've messed up 25% of it and made the meta worse. Yep. And that's where we're in right now.
So look, we're at a point now. Let's not forget, we are complaining about changes in the meta like a week and a half
Hmm.
after the meta has come out. That doesn't happen. And this isn't just like, oh, one card was adjusted and it was driven by constructed, right? Like something like that. Specific arena changes. There was a short post on an official Blizzard website, and then the lead of arena slash modes, really modes, commented about the philosophy and why they did those things. This is a luxury. Being able to complain that they didn't exactly get it right this time. I think some of the ideas were good. I think some of the changes were a little bit too much, just like you said, with the shaman and warlock, going different
Yeah.
directions
But it's not
too
even that it's too
strongly.
much. Like Warlock, just there just has to be a flat rule. You do not increase common class cards, and you do not increase any other cards above the offering rate of a common class card. Otherwise, you're just asking for it, right? You're just asking for it.
It's very dangerous when you look at the list of cards that you are increasing for warlock. You look at these, you're like, wait, these are all incredible swing removal,
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
all of
nerfs.
these
I didn't even
things.
talk about the rare cards that were increased. I'm just gonna list them: Soul Rend, Crazed Netherwing, Full Blown Evil, Infestation,
Yeah. um it's
Siphon Soul.
so much initiative that warlocks just like they are able to fight off any pressure now, and then they can find their combos, or they can find whatever, right? Or they can just dig deeper into their deck and find one of these busted cards that they're always drafting now. It's pretty rough. So the first time that we saw these adjustments, they didn't do enough, right? Like they
Mm-hmm.
were careful. Here, they did the standard just double it
Mm,
policy that Blizzard typically does, which I think most people would agree is a lot of times just a bit too much. But this is Blizzard's philosophy for a lot of it. It's like um, instead of pure balance, they prefer a shakeup in the meta, and they do this with like quite a few of their games. It's sort of like a Blizzard thing. Um, I think that once again, this will be a good learning
mm-hmm.
experience. So we are obviously not completely satisfied with the state of the meta. I don't think a lot of people are, and that's totally fine. But we do want to separate that from sort of their communication and their effort
Yeah.
on this. And I think what happened with this meta and the mistakes that they made were really predictable. As in, they were going to make it, and they probably knew they were going to make these
Yeah.
mistakes.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah,
like that's why they said, oh, "Hey, we're moving things around a ton now." They're like, "Watch
yeah.
out, crazy stuff is gonna happen." I like, yeah, like you said, it's predictable that this was going to happen, and I think they wanted to make it a little too much. But what I don't like to see is that they did not draw a line at common class cards, which means they were either not thinking about it or that they did not give that like thought the weight that it deserved. Because it's one thing to move levers around, and who knows how to move levers around when it's affecting everything, and everything affects everything, and you want to. It's really hard, right? But this was predictable in the sense of if you gave Warlocks double Spawn of Deathwing, Demonic Assault, Hollow Abomination, regardless of whether Warlock is the best class or not, Warlocks are not going to be fun to play against. So this is just a like a this is not a hey, we did this, now we saw the result and it was bad. This is a 100% of the time before you did it, you knew that doing this was going to have a bad result in at least a very significant way, even if it didn't result in a 54% win rate. And you were like, yeah, we're going to try it. Like, what's there to try? There was no way this ended good. We've been very vocal and against this type of balancing for at least a year. I don't know that we talked about it before a year ago, but we obviously still felt that way. It just wasn't a topic. But once active balancing started, this was one of the points that I was like, it's a trap. They could fall for it, and I was very happy that they didn't for the first balancing, but now they have, and hopefully they come to the same conclusions that we've come to, and I think that like it's just it if you're when you're in the game, it feels obvious. It feels very obvious that something has gone really, really, really wrong when you face a warlock. And once you hear, oh, they doubled the offering rate of Spawn of Deathwing, Hollow Abomination, Demonic Assault, Abyssal Enforcer, you're like, okay, that makes sense. That's kind of what I'm seeing. Um, yeah, it is what it is.
Yep. And right now, the feel of the arena as well is just people dropping bombs
Mm-hmm.
on each other. It's just one powerful swing after another powerful swing. You can definitely try to predict some stuff. I think resource management is important. So, for example, maybe not putting out too much stuff. Um, Kind of, figuring out how can I make my opponents perhaps play a little awkward. Remembering what gave them a bit of trouble before, maybe. These are good skills to have in this meta. Now, that doesn't matter a decent amount of
Mm-hmm.
times. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Like some of the removals and some of the initiatives, and it's just some of the just straight up busted combos that they have going. Essentially, there are games in which you look back at the HS replay uh, kind of deck tracker replay, and you'll see, oh, because I didn't kill him by turn 5, he was going to win. It was basically solitaire at that point. You're going to get frustrated by those, but yeah, that's sort of it. Like, so it's up to you guys on whether or not you want to play it, but that's sort of the state, and that's sort of one of the skills that I have seen that is important for this meta. Also, just having a good mental, I don't know, do some yoga, eat some good food.
Yep, that is the best advice you can get in this meta. It is what it is. You're in it for at least another week, probably at least 2 weeks, because this is not like the launch, right? They launch a new mini set, they know they need to adjust, and they're going to do it. Now, I don't know that they're looking to adjust as quickly. I hope they do, because the meta has gotten a little bit worse, and it is noticeable. And it was already not the best meta from no fault of the arena team. That's just they introduced these cards, right? As the dev team, you got to be able to put together the kinds of the kinds of wild rotate. The whole point of a wild rotation is to put together stuff, right? So they put together something they thought was going to be fun. We're not analyzing whether the sets that came in were right or not. That's kind of their creative construction. From a balance perspective, you should be able to throw any 6 sets together, especially if they're modern sets, and then come to an okay meta after you do adjustments. Or else you have a fundamental problem with the arena that developers can't save without massive resource investment and changing the fundamental rules of the arena. So I don't think we're there. I guess it depends on what kind of a player you are. I think mentally I've already adjusted to the high power levels, and that doesn't really throw me off as much anymore. But double the offering rate of Spawn of Deathwing makes me feel bad. Double the offering rate of Hollow Abomination makes me feel bad. I'm not weird. That's just how things are. You know what people felt bad with? The whole Scale of Onyxia card. That had no offering rate bonus. That was just a common card in the best class, and that felt really bad. Well, now you're doubling it. Why? What? Anyway, ideally they'll do some kind of balance change soon, and then you'll be in a better meta than the current one. But right now,
Ideally, yes.
ideally, but right now, if you're trying to figure out how the meta is changing, we kind of gave an overview of it, but I'll go a little bit more specific, which is that the top classes are Warrior and Warlock, and you may think those are not very similar classes. They are very similar classes in this meta because both of them are characterized by endless card advantage. Warlock can draw cards with the hero power, obviously, and they have all these board clears and whatever stuff, so they actually have plenty of life. Warriors have endless life with a whole lot of armor gain stuff, and they have endless cards because Outrider Axe is boosted. And if you guys remember, Outrider Axe was a very, very, very good card. It's the 4-mana 3/3 weapon. After your hero attacks and kills a minion, draw a card. So it basically draws you 3 cards over the course of 3 or 4 turns, and is a 4-mana 3/3 weapon, which is already okay. This card, if you're tracking it, on June 1st was seen in 1.3% of all decks. Now it is seen in 3.8%. I don't know that the offering rate for this has been actually adjusted up, even though the number's more than double. This may just reflect that people are playing Warrior more. So I'm not like putting this on the like adjustment side, right? What definitely was adjusted was like Fires of Zinashari. I'm pretty sure that got adjusted up for, I don't know, memes or whatever. But this could just be like the changes for Warrior could just be a result of like for the first day, at least 24 hours, if not 48 hours after the adjustments happened, Warrior was actually on top, not Warlock, on the HS replay offering rates. And I think that opened the gates for a lot of people trying out Warrior again. So I think this may not be an adjustment up for Outriders Axe. This may just be like more people are playing Warrior. But Outriders Axe is in the meta. And yes, it is rare, but a lot of Warriors have it. And it is endless card advantage. Fires of Zinashari is getting more popular for whatever reason, and it is a quite sizable card if you want to go into the long game, because everything costs, you're getting very large minions from it, right? And very large, those are large, so you get a really large deck. The card that seems, the other card that's really commonly seen in Warrior is Stonewall Anchorman. Again, with the Warrior, it's really hard to tell if they adjusted up or not, but it is seen right now in 6% of all decks according to HS Replay, and it is the common card that has the highest win rate in Warrior, and it's the 5 mana 4/6 Rush Frenzy draw card. So your top Warrior cards are all like big cards that like draw you cards and whatever. Tidal Revenant, the new card, is also gigantic. It's an 8 mana card that deals 5 damage, gains 8 armor, and is a sizable minion. Like, Warriors are big, and Warriors draw cards. So your whole meta right now, being Warlock first and foremost, and then Warrior being second tier, is just, especially after you get to a decent amount of wins, it's just a lot of card draw that you're going to be facing. And now that they nerfed the offering rates of Twin Tyrant, and they nerfed the offering rates of Scorpid, the other classes actually kind of have a card drawing problem now. Like, we were never at Skullman's levels. We were at like pretty good card draw. Like, you could card draw and play the game, but you'll eventually run out of cards too if the swings don't, go one way or the other super quick. And now with these changes, outside of Warlock and Warrior, you really do have a card draw problem with the vast majority of the remaining classes. And they can't match up with Warlock and Warrior's card draw. But they also can't push that well, or at least you can't push that well against Warlock for obvious reasons. You get wiped off the board very easily. And for Warrior, they're just very good at making sure you're not on the board that much to begin with, and they have a huge, ridiculous amount of life. So you try to push damage on a Warlock, it's like not smork them down, maybe like mid-range them down so you don't have to worry about card advantage. It's rough. It's rough because you're not dealing 30 damage to kill them. You need to deal like 45, 50. And that's rough on a deck. Because if your deck is actually structured to deal 50 damage to a deck in mid-range, then you don't have a very good deck against any other class besides Warrior. So you're in this kind of deck building problem of like, what do I do to counter this meta? And the answer is, you have to draw cards too. You unfortunately have to draw cards too, and you don't have a lot of ways to do that. So good luck. It's just a lot of out of your hands kind of deal. So that's my take on this current meta that we've been in for a few days now, and we'll probably be in for another week or two at least.
I think that sounds good. Yeah, it's a good breakdown of the meta. It's a good analysis of why I think most people are a little bit frustrated by this meta, even though the win rates seem, other than Priest, seem reasonable. It seems like it would be a healthier / more feels good meta than it currently is, which is pretty feels bad. But once again, we have a team that has shown they are not afraid to make changes. They're actually pretty fast on making changes, and they are willing to communicate. So I think being cautiously optimistic is very fair.
Yep. And for all the feels bad that's happening at the top, obviously the classes they nerfed feel a lot better to play against. So you can be a lot less frustrated by your matches against paladins and shamans. But you probably won't face many paladins and shamans unless you're not doing very well in the first place. So I guess what they need is they need to keep the warrior and the warlock down to the in the pits. That warlock buff package was whew. All right, that's it for us for the Lightforge podcast. Give a shout out to our patrons, patreon.com/grinninggoat. Thank you guys so much for supporting us. We really appreciate all of your support. And last week we had a really long question from the goat on Diablo Immortal. This week we'll have a very quick question from the goat on Diablo Immortal, which is, Merps, how much time have you spent on Diablo Immortal since it launched 10 days ago?
I've played a lot. I mean, it is a good game to just sort of like have on in the background of anything. Like honestly, anything. So I have been playing a lot. I'm currently so there's challenge rifts, which is a PVE sort of like they throw you in like a level. You have to go kill off normal monsters and then kill a boss. Right now I'm a top 50 demon hunter, which is very significant because that is a very pay to win aspect of the game.
Challenge rifts are literally
Significantly
the
so.
most pay to win aspect of the entire game, more so than
Yes.
PvP.
Yes. So I am sandwiched completely in like right now my ranking I think is like 41, but I am completely sandwiched by people who 110% paid a lot more money, like a lot more money, magnitudes more, many magnitudes more than I have. So it's fine, Like we said last week, if I had in my mind I have to be top 5 on the leaderboards, I should not play this period because I am not prepared. And this is something that you just cannot outskill.
Yeah.
Period.
And this is the specific leaderboard for solo. For any kind of challenge rifts. PvP is surprisingly more friendly to people with smaller wallets because it's very diluted. It's 8v8, so your impact is a bit diluted. There's a lot more big picture strategy, and there's a lot more like things you subtly do to like all of a sudden make your team significantly better. Like Overwatch does this too, right? A lot of team-based games do it. MOBAs do it, where your skill really does show through in like weird, subtle ways. And dealing an extra 10% damage is not as big of a deal. They also scale PvP down so that the impact of combat rating is only 10% of PvE, so that you don't just get decimated by people who pay a crap ton of money. And if you do literally anything else, you don't need to pay any money. I don't know how many hours have you played? You played like, I don't know how many hours you played. I've played.
See, that's a weird, that's a hard part.
I played like 60 hours, maybe.
Well, that's how do you define play?
Like actively playing the game, not doing research on the game, not me on Reddit yelling at people who don't understand the game, saying random shit.
Wait, you're yelling at people on Reddit?
I always yell at people on Reddit. I yell at people on Reddit for like everything, because people on Reddit are like a lot of them are very dumb, and then they affect susceptible people on Reddit who may not have formed a strong opinion yet with their misinformation. And there's also a lot of very reasonable people on Reddit. If there weren't, I wouldn't yell at people. I yell at people because there is an effect, rarely on the person I'm yelling at, but oftentimes on the community as a whole. I feel like if you yell at enough people and you make sense when you're yelling at them, you can shift sentiment quite significantly. Not like you can't flip sentiment, but you can like cause major shifts in it as people like just like know more about stuff, right? And they have like a little bit more tempered opinions rather than their like whole whatever thing. Anyway, that's not counting those stuff, right? Like counting hours you actually spent in the game, including shopping, including like whatever bullshit that you like, the Akiba crap that you have to do. There's a really terrible game in this there's a really terrible mini game in Diablo Immortal, and once you become a shadow, you'll know it, and you will be like, who the hell okayed this in this design form? You had 2 years to work it out. What the hell? It's also buggy on the PC on top of that. So it's not even just terribly designed; it's also terribly implemented on the
I have
PC.
crashed many times, and this is why, for example, some people asked about hardcore, and I think the answer was we have no plans to make this hardcore at all
Hmm.
because they know that like even if you want to play hardcore, we're gonna take that decision away from
Yeah,
you
yeah,
because there
no.
is no way.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
And especially with microtransactions and whatever, like that's already like kind of like Blizzard NetEase responsibility. Like that's gonna be that's just waiting to happen, right? Not like a lawsuit, probably a lawsuit too, but also just bad PR. Like I spent $10,000 on my character, it died due to server lag. Like what? Um, so yeah, so Diablo Immortal, definitely give it a try. One more shout out for our warband, not our warband, our guild, Grinning Goat. You can apply. I think we have a bar now at apprentice level rather than just initiate because we're almost full. But we're gonna be kicking people out. I guess this is where random first place to announce that we're gonna be kicking people out. Next Saturday, we're gonna kick out anybody who is not at least apprentice 3, which is a very low shadow level to have. We're basically just trying to kick out people who are not actually playing the game. Because you only have 100 slots, there's no way to increase slots right now. We can't just take everybody. I mean, we do take literally everybody, but we do want people who actually play the game. Like, we're not picky, we just need people to be active. And this is our way of gating who's actually not active. And you can
If
always
you have
rejoin once you get
if you have
like
done a clan activity for a cumulative like hour, you are apprentice
in a
3.
week.
Yeah, in a
Yeah.
week. A cumulative 1 hour.
Yeah.
That's what we're asking.
It's gonna keep going. Like every week, we're gonna raise it up, right? So the next week, you're gonna have to do another hour, right? And if you're
Oh
not doing
no.
like that, then maybe don't be in our, a shadow clan that's like trying to do stuff. We're not trying to be the top, but I also don't want like a clan of half people who don't actually play the game, because you get access to the dark shadow stuff sort of early, like before you're level 60 even. And a lot of people quit when they're level 60 because that's the main story. And there's definitely merit to just playing the game for the main story and then saying, screw it, right? It's like the people who play Diablo for normal. There are so many people who just play Diablo for normal. So many people. Like, it's unbelievable to actual Diablo players how you could stop at normal, but technically the game ends. Like, the game kind of ends. In Diablo Immortal, there's a lot of stuff that opens up once you get to Hell, because it's an MMO. So the game doesn't really end. And I'm not formally in Hell 2 yet, but I don't think anywhere near as much opens up in Hell 2 compared to Hell 1. And there's not even any more achievements after Hell 2. So that's where the game like ends. But right now, Hell 1 kind of is where it ends. And if you're worried about, like, here's one thing that I like to bring up a lot, which is that I have never been gated in this game. The first time I was ever gated was yesterday. And that's because I tried to grind yesterday super hard to try to get to server level. And I failed because there's a lot of grind caps. Like, the game is not friendly for grinding. Like, I just wanted to experience the thing for myself. And I dropped a lot of hours in. And, like, there was a point in which my legendary rate slowed. But then I still got 3 legendaries afterwards. So whatever. It wasn't that bad. It's just that, some of the activities stop giving you rare items that they would normally, not rare item, rare crafting mats that they usually guarantee you. There's a lot of activities that guarantee 3 rare crafting mats, and if you do more than 6 of them a day for any category, they just stop giving you like those 3 or 6 crafting mats, and it kind of sucks. It's the game telling you stop playing. you play too much. But if you can push on, the game never stops you from playing. You get less and less efficient at whatever you're trying to do, unless you're just trying to play the game and enjoy the game, right? But until yesterday, I had not ever hit that limit, and until yesterday, I have probably played somewhere between 60 and 100 hours of this game, at a pretty normal clip per day. So it's actually kind of hard to get gated. I don't know. People are complaining online about getting gated, but those are the hardcore people who are like grinding like Merps. Merps got gated like quite a bit ago and was like talking about it. I was like, ooh, that sounds bad. But I don't play as much. You can still play a lot. Like I said, 60 to 100 hours in the span of 10 days. Less than 10 days, really. And you don't get gated as long as you distribute your playtime out. in either daily doses or every 3 days. But daily is the best way to not get gated. Every 3 days, a lot of things you can make up for, but you're still going to get gated on your legendary drops and your soft gated on your legendary drops and your like best bestiary and like other important stuff as well. So it's definitely one of those games. It's one of those games that really encourages you to play every day for 2 hours or 1 hour or even 4 hours. But they did not encourage you to play for like 8 to 12 hours a day. You will notice some pain. So yeah, that's Diablo Immortal. Got anything else to say about Diablo Immortal before we shut down this podcast and play some Diablo Immortal?
No, that's basically it. And yes, we're still having a coup, but there is a time-sensitive thing that we're about to go right after this.
There's an
for only
event.
10 minutes.
So one other thing, like this is an MMO. It's
No,
really
we don't have to. Like we've talked about Immortal
Okay,
enough.
okay.
You really rambled on there. I'm sorry.
I rambled on for like 3 minutes at most. Okay,
You went for quite a while there. I was like, oh my god, he has to stop. I don't. You are. I think typically a verbose person, but for some reason, when you get to Diablo Immortal, my gosh,
because
the
everybody
words,
is
man.
wrong.
Yeah,
Like, you know when
that
everybody is
some-
wrong and like you are
that
one of the
is
only people that are right, and then you care a lot about the topic, you just have more to say. If people are like mostly right, and then you also feel strongly about a topic, you don't have that much to say, right?
Okay, so for everybody that's out there, I think you should just wear a shirt that has your slogan, "Everybody is wrong." That just seems to be
No. But that's not
like your
true.
motto.
Everybody is right about the vast majority of things. But there are few small, like, not small things, but there are a few things that people are like near 100% wrong or 75% wrong on. And those are the things I like to talk about because I hate like just walking around agreeing with everyone. Like, why flap your mouth at that point? Like, I just assume everybody agrees with each other unless they say otherwise, right? Like, we're all nice people. We are at least nice enough. Like, we all share generally the same human culture, especially in this era of globalization. Like, generally, on the big picture, we agree. So most of the things we talk about are the areas that we either don't agree in, or it's like asking a question, or we're like coordinating logistics of something. That's human communication. And so disagreeing is a large part of it. And on Diablo Immortal, almost everybody is wrong. That's not even true. There's a lot of people that are right. They're just not vocal about it because they're afraid of being mobbed by the powerful people in the gaming community who don't like Diablo Immortal and what it could potentially mean for gaming in the future or for Blizzard games in the future or for all sorts of similar, not exactly this particular game kind of like reasons. See, you just got me on another 2-minute rant.
I do. Yes, I did this.
Well, you brought up the topic that people may not be wrong, right? Like you implied that that people may not be wrong about this, even though you agree with me on the vast majority of what I say about this topic.
Oh my god! All right, we'll see you next week, guys.
See ya.